The empty chair across from me had been waiting for 90 minutes. A candle burned between two untouched glasses of water. The waiter had stopped asking whether my guest was coming. Every time the restaurant door opened, I looked up and hoped to see Daniel. He never came. At 9:30, my phone finally rang. I answered so fast that I almost dropped it. "Daniel, where are you?" There was music behind his voice. People were laughing. He sounded relaxed, almost happy. "Oh, Claire. I forgot about dinner. I'm out with some friends." For a moment, I could not speak. I had left work early, changed into my green dress, and taken a bus across town because he had chosen this place. He gave a small laugh. "Don't make it a big thing. You know you're special to me." Those words should have made me feel better. For months, they always had. That night, they made me feel smaller than the empty chair. My name is Claire Morgan. I was 30 years old then, and I worked as a features writer for a local magazine in Fort Collins, Colorado. I wrote about small businesses, community events, and ordinary people with unusual lives. Sometimes, the most dangerous lies are not cruel words. They are beautiful words without real actions. So ask yourself this. If someone says you are special, do their choices make you feel loved, safe, and respected? Real love should not keep you waiting, guessing, or feeling small. I liked my work because stories made sense on paper. Every article had a beginning, a middle, and an ending. Real life was not always so clear. Before Daniel, my days were quiet. I rented a one-bedroom apartment above a flower shop. Each morning, I bought coffee from the bakery downstairs and walked 12 minutes to the office. Then Daniel Reed came into our office on a bright Tuesday afternoon. He was there for an interview about a new community center his company had helped design. He arrived 10 minutes early, carried no notes, and remembered everyone's name after hearing it once. When I asked questions, he did not look at his watch. He leaned forward and listened as if my words mattered more than anything else in the room. After the interview, he stayed beside my desk. "You ask better questions than most reporters," he said. "I'm not a reporter," I replied. "I write features." He smiled. "That is exactly what I mean. You notice things other people miss." No one had ever said that to me before. At the door, he turned back. "You're different, Claire. Don't forget that." I thought about his words all evening. A week later, he returned with coffee for the whole office. He remembered that I drank mine without sugar. I told myself it was only kindness, but I was pleased that he had noticed. Soon he found reasons to visit again. He brought photos for the article. He asked whether I needed more information. He said he wanted to read the final version before it was printed. One afternoon, he waited until my co-workers had left for lunch. Then he placed a paper bag on my desk. "I brought you a sandwich," he said. "You always work through lunch." I laughed. "Have you been watching me?" "Only a little." His smile was warm, but there was something careful behind it. I did not notice that part then. We ate in a small park behind the office. Daniel asked about my childhood, my parents, and the books I loved. He spoke less about himself. When I asked about his family, he said they were complicated. When I asked about past relationships, he looked at the trees and changed the subject. He asked about my dreams. I told him I wanted to write a novel, but I was afraid I was not good enough. "You are more than good enough," he said. "You have something rare." Then he touched my hand. "You are special, Claire." That word entered my heart before my mind had time to question it. After that day, we began meeting outside work. We walked beside the river after sunset. We shared soup in quiet cafes. Sometimes he called me in the morning just to hear my voice. If I said I was tired, he told me to rest. If I worried about an article, he He said I was the best writer he knew. If I felt lonely, he appeared at my door with coffee and a smile. Yet he never introduced me to his friends. He never invited me to his home. He said he traveled often and was rarely there. When I asked where he lived, he gave the name of a neighborhood, not an address. I wanted to believe the feeling between us was real. I wanted to believe that a man like Daniel had looked through a crowded room and truly seen me. 3 months passed. I began planning my weeks around him. I kept Friday nights free in case he called. I stopped making weekend plans with friends because Daniel often said, "Maybe we can do something." Sometimes he was loving for days. Then he disappeared without warning. When he returned, he never explained. He brought flowers, kissed my forehead, and said work had been difficult. "You understand me better than anyone," he would say. "That is why you're special." I accepted the answer because I was afraid the truth would take him away. One evening, my friend Nora asked me to meet her for dinner. She had watched me check my phone 6 times in 10 minutes. "Does he know you are his girlfriend?" she asked. I felt heat rise in my face. "We don't use that word." "Why not?" "He doesn't like labels." Nora was quiet. Then she asked, "Does he not like labels, or does he not like responsibility?" I became angry. I told her she did not know him. I said Daniel had been hurt before and needed time. Nora did not argue. She only said, "I hope his actions are as kind as his words." A few days later, I asked Daniel what we were. We were sitting in my apartment, and rain tapped against the windows. He had arrived after midnight, saying he missed me. "Are we together?" I asked. "I need to know." He stared at me for a long moment. Then he smiled in the soft way that usually calmed me. "Why do we need to name it?" "Because I care about you." "I care about you too." "That isn't an answer." His face changed. The warmth left his eyes. "Claire, don't ruin something good by asking for rules." I looked down at my hands. "I'm not asking for rules. I'm asking whether you choose me." He stood and walked to the window. "You know you matter to me," he said. "Isn't that enough?" Instead, I whispered, "Yes." The next morning, he left before I woke up. For the following week, he did not call. I told myself I had pushed too hard. I replayed the conversation and blamed myself for making him uncomfortable. Then he appeared at my office with a small silver pen. "For your novel," he said. That was Daniel's pattern. He caused the pain, then offered just enough kindness to make me doubt the pain was real. The dinner at the restaurant happened 2 weeks later. After his call, I paid the bill for the drink I had not touched. Outside, cold wind moved through the street. I walked 3 blocks before I realized I was going in the wrong direction. The next morning, Daniel sent only 4 words. "Busy night. Talk later." There was no apology. At work, Nora saw my tired face but did not ask questions. She placed a cup of tea on my desk and squeezed my shoulder. 3 days later, Daniel came to my apartment. He held a box of pastries and acted as if nothing had happened. "I missed my special girl," he said. I should have closed the door. Instead, I moved aside. For 1 quiet hour, he became the man I had first met. He asked about my work. He laughed at my stories. He said we should take a trip together in the summer. A week later, I was walking back from an interview when I saw Daniel across the street. He stood outside a wine bar with a woman in a red coat. She touched his arm and leaned close. He looked at her with the same gentle smile he had once given me. At first, I tried to create an innocent story. Maybe she was a coworker. Maybe she was a cousin. Maybe she was an old friend. Then he brushed a piece of hair away from her face. She kissed him. The traffic light changed, but I did not move. Cars passed between us, and for a few seconds I could see only pieces of them. Daniel said something that made her laugh. Then he took her hand, and they walked away together. I went home and sat on the floor beside my bed. I looked at the silver pen he had given me. It lay on my desk beside an empty notebook. For the first time, I did not ask what was wrong with me. I asked what kind of man needed several women to believe they were the only one. I opened my laptop and searched his name. I had searched him before, but only for his work. This time, I looked more carefully. His public pages were clean and professional. There were photos of buildings, charity events, and business dinners. He was always smiling beside someone, but the captions said little. Then I found a photo posted by a woman named Elise. Daniel stood beside her at a mountain lodge. His arm was around her waist. The photo was 6 months old, taken only weeks before he met me. Her caption said, "Another perfect weekend with my favorite person." There were older photos. Birthdays. Concerts. A family dinner. In one picture, Daniel kissed her cheek while she held a cake. Maybe they had ended things before he met me. Maybe the woman in the red coat was someone else. But the dates told a different story. 2 weeks earlier, Elise had posted a picture of 2 coffee cups on a balcony. Daniel's watch was visible beside one of them. He had told me he was traveling for work that weekend. Daniel had not made one mistake. He had built a life where every woman received only part of the truth. My phone rang at 11 that night. I answered. "Claire," he said warmly. "I've been thinking about you. I saw you today. At the wine bar," I continued. "And I found Elise's photos." His voice became colder. "Why were you searching for me? You lied to me. I never promised you anything." He was right about one thing. He had avoided promises. He had allowed me to build them in my own mind while he repeated one beautiful word. "You said I was special. Am I special in the same way Elise is special? Or the woman in the red coat? You're becoming dramatic." For months, I had feared losing him. In that moment, I understood there was nothing real to lose. "Do not call me again," I said. He laughed once. "You don't mean that." Then I ended the call. My hands shook for several minutes. I expected him to call back, but he did not. The next weeks were not brave or beautiful. Healing did not begin with one strong speech. It began with very small choices. I deleted his number, then found it again in an old message. I blocked him, then wondered whether I had been too cruel. I woke at night and missed the man I thought he was. Nora came to my apartment with soup and stayed until I fell asleep on the sofa. One morning, she helped me put Daniel's gifts into a box. The flowers were gone, but the silver pen remained. "Keep the pen," she said. "He does not own your dream." For several days, I could not write anything except work assignments. Every personal sentence sounded false. I had spent months believing Daniel's view of me, and now I did not know how to see myself. Then my editor, Mr. Bennett, gave me an assignment at a new art center. "I need a story about the opening," he said. "Talk to the artists. Find something human." I almost asked Nora to take it. Crowds made me tired, and I did not want to speak to strangers. But I went. The gallery was inside an old train building. Music played softly near the entrance. Bright paintings covered the brick walls. In the back room, I saw a large picture of a woman standing in heavy rain. Her coat was open. Her hair was wet. She had no umbrella. The artist stood nearby, an older woman with short white hair. I asked why the woman in the painting was not running for shelter. "She is not waiting to be saved," the artist said. "She knows the rain will pass." That night, Daniel sent an email from a new address. "I miss you. Can we talk?" Part of me wanted him to explain. Part of me wanted him to say Elise meant nothing, the woman in red meant nothing, and I was the person he truly loved. But I had finally learned that a good explanation could not repair repeated choices. I deleted the email. The next day, I began writing about the woman in the rain. The article was supposed to be about the gallery, but it became something more. I wrote about people who stand still during difficult seasons. I wrote about the difference between being alone and being abandoned. Mr. Bennett read the article twice. "This is your best work," he said. "It feels honest." A week later, readers began sending messages. One woman said she had left a relationship where she was always waiting. Another said she had forgotten her own dreams while trying to please someone else. Mr. Bennett asked me to write a weekly column about ordinary people facing emotional turning points. Each week, I interviewed someone new. A father who learned to care for his daughter alone. A nurse who returned to school at 45. A young man who rebuilt his life after losing his job. Their stories gave me strength, but they also kept me humble. Everyone carried pain that other people could not see. Daniel continued trying to reach me. Sometimes he sent short messages from unknown numbers. "Thinking of you. You know we had something real. No one understands me like you do." One Saturday, he waited outside my apartment building. I saw him from half a block away. He wore the dark jacket I liked, and he held 2 cups of coffee. My body reacted before my mind did. My heart beat faster. My steps became slow. Then I remembered the restaurant, the wine bar, and the cold way he had said, "I never promised you anything." He walked toward me. "Claire, please. 5 minutes." I stopped several feet away. "I made mistakes," he said. "But what we had was different." "Different from what?" He looked down. "From the others." He had finally said the truth without meaning to. "You liked being wanted," I said. "You liked knowing I would wait. That is not love." His eyes hardened. "You think one little newspaper column makes you an expert now?" "I don't need to be an expert," I said. "I only need to know how I felt when I was with you." I walked past him and entered the building. Upstairs, my hands shook again, but this time I was proud of them. Courage did not mean feeling nothing. It meant choosing yourself while fear was still present. My life became full in ways I had forgotten were possible. I met Nora for breakfast on Saturdays. I called my mother more often. I returned to the riverside path and walked there without thinking about Daniel. I also opened the notebook he had given me the pen for. At first, I wrote only 1 page a week. Then 1 page became 3. The story was about a woman who believed someone else could give her value. A few weeks later, Mr. Bennett told me a larger news group was opening a small office in Boulder. They needed an editor for human interest stories. "They asked me for a recommendation," he said. "I gave them your name." The old Claire would have found 10 reasons to say no. Instead, I asked when the interview was. I got the job. Leaving Fort Collins felt strange. The city held both my weakest nights and my strongest mornings. On my final day, Nora helped me load boxes into my car. While we packed, Nora found the silver pen in my desk. "You still use this?" she asked. "Every day." "Does it remind you of him?" "No. It reminds me that something can begin in the wrong hands and still become yours." My new office was small and busy. I led a team of 4 writers. Some were confident. Others doubted every sentence. I tried to give them what Daniel had pretended to give me, honest attention. I did not call everyone special. I told them exactly what they did well. I also told them when their work needed improvement. One rainy afternoon, almost a year after the night at the restaurant, I visited a cafe near my new office. I sat beside the window with my laptop and worked on my novel. At the next table, a woman stared at her phone. A candle burned beside an empty chair. Every time the door opened, she looked up. After nearly an hour, she wiped her eyes and asked the waiter for the bill. As she stood, our eyes met. I wanted to tell her everything would be fine. But I did not know her story, and I did not want to offer empty comfort. Instead, I said, "I hope you do something kind for yourself tonight." After she left, I looked at the rain on the window and remembered the painting in the gallery. The rain had passed for me, but not because Daniel returned with the right words. It passed because I stopped standing in the same place, waiting for him to become someone else. That evening, I finished the first draft of my novel. I read the final page twice. Then I placed the silver pen beside the keyboard and walked to the window. The city lights shone on the wet streets. Cars moved below. People hurried home under umbrellas. For a long time, silence had felt like rejection. Now it felt like peace. I thought about the first day Daniel called me special. I had believed he was giving me something I did not already have. My worth had been there before he arrived. It stayed while he lied. It waited patiently while I learned to see it again. I made tea, opened a fresh page, and wrote a dedication for the book. For anyone who was called special but never treated with care. May you stop waiting for words and start believing what actions show you. Daniel had been part of my story, but he had never been the person who decided its ending.